Yo, what's going on? Welcome to the 80's Babies Conversation Podcast. I'm your boy Devon Rick.
And I'm your girl, Ray Cherie. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Thank y'all so much for joining us tonight on our podcast. Definitely came in for a great conversation today. And we're going to get into it, but we want to first thank everybody for joining us. And also for everyone who helped us reach 300 followers in 2 weeks. Can we give it up for that? Come on now.
Thank
Y'all out
you.
here sharing our posts, letting us know that you guys are interested in what the conversations are that we're having, and exactly bringing the heat. Each and every other week we're going to continue to do this, and we hope that you continue to come back and participate in the conversation with us.
All right. So
Well,
we do have two really outstanding guests with us tonight. So we're going to allow them to introduce themselves at this time. Dr. Alicia, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Dr. Alicia. I'm a psychologist. My specialty is anxiety, and I'm just here to have a good time tonight and share some information.
most definitely. Thank you for being here.
And Mr. Isaiah Foote, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, definitely. My name is Isaiah Foote, and I'm a mental health therapist, licensed clinical social worker. Provide services on the west side of North Carolina, so over in Charlotte, Mecklenburg area, Cabarrus County, Ariel County, adults and children and families, specifically with trauma-based, also dialectical behavioral therapy as well. And I'm excited to be here as well and be able to share with you guys and have a good conversation.
Awesome.
Most definitely. Okay. We see y'all. We got some heavy hitters in here today, y'all. Like, we ain't gonna play. Okay, I'm just letting y'all know.
Yes, the credentials are on the table. So we're going to go ahead and dig into these hot topics before we get into the serious business for tonight. The thing that I saw on the news the other day was Megan Thee Stallion's interview with Gayle King. And, I think the incident is about almost 2 years old.
Yeah.
And it involved her being shot in the foot by Tory Lanez, who we thought was her boyfriend. But in the interview, she said they were, not lovers. So they go to a party.
They were just friends.
They were just friends. Yeah. Yeah. They go to this party at Khloe Kardashian's house and they leave and they're in the car. Things get a little crazy. She asked for the car to stop so she can get out, but she gets back in. It's still a little crazy in the car and she's shot in a nutshell. But the police are called and she doesn't know how. And when they get there, she says due to like the George Floyd incident just happening at that time, they're all black. It's a stolen gun in the car. I told them I stepped on glass. And then she says, she didn't know the extent of her injuries. She did not know, but she wanted to save her friends. So I told them I just stepped on glass.
How glass get in the car? We're gonna talk about it? How did the glass get in the car? Oh man. There's so much to unpack here, man. Like, let's talk about the fact that she got shot, right? But she told the police that she stepped on glass. We had a conversation about this on our last podcast about the black woman and how she is the protector in this, and she puts on her cape and how she helps to uphold the black family. And here's an example of just that. Another black woman saving us in the midst of everything else that's going on. I mean, to be true, to be factual, I mean, it was a lot. I think for me, if I was in that situation, I'm gonna try to avoid the police as much as possible too. Any type of contact with them, anything that could trigger anything to happen further than just a misunderstanding, right? But sis told us that wasn't the truth. Like, she lied. She protected the whole situation, and she's carried that for 2 years while Tory Lanez has told his side of the story. And now she's getting a chance to actually vocalize how she was affected and how she feels about it.
Yes. And I think that is why do we feel like we have to save everybody? You know, when does your health become the least important?
Mm.
You know, that's what I thought about. Friend or foe, I'm injured. I need some assistance, kind of thing. You know, when
Yeah.
do I get some help for myself? If I've just discovered that my friend really didn't care about me that much.
Yeah. That's something to think about though, right? Like in the moment when you have to make those kind of decisions. Well, first of all, you got to be thinking about a lot of stuff all at once. But right, you default to so many different parts of who you are. So I can imagine, right, the first part is who you are as a Black person. And
Mm.
like all this stuff has been going on. And you're like, the police are here now. Like this could just turn all the way ugly. Even though I know there was a crime, even though I may be in danger, like I'm actually maybe feeling more in danger by them being present.
Yeah.
So the thing I would defer to is maybe like just the minimization of like, nah, we're good, everything's fine. Like you said, even though I just learned that somebody that I thought cared about me doesn't, for whatever reason.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece that was so strong in that interview, because in the interview she was crying. She was super emotional the whole interview about the situation. You know, all these emotions obviously coming out, her being able to tell her story, but the fact that she thought that her and Tori had this bond. And then when this all came out, she's like, she was left out there by herself to defend herself. So her feeling that connection, and then her feeling once again kind of out there by herself, you know, that's painful for her, I'm sure. And you could see it in the interview. You can see the pain all in her face in the interview, and all the feelings of being scared, feeling alone. And then you mentioned earlier about her not feeling like, because of that situation, the long lasting piece about that, not wanting to trust other people, having some issues with probably building, I think she said building relationships with other people, all those reoccurring things that were going on with her that's still happening 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. I mean, you think about it, when she talks about it in the interview, they were both grieving. They both lost their grandparents, right? And
Mhm.
so their bond and their relationship was built off of grief.
Yeah.
I think they
I
lost their mothers or something
It
like
was your mother's. I apologize.
that. Mhm.
And I was gonna say for myself, I end up in a bad relationship with someone off of the same thing.
Oh wow.
I had lost my grandmother, and they lost one of their closest cousins, and we ended up in a relationship that was very toxic, and I couldn't understand why we couldn't get right. But it wasn't built on a healthy foundation because we were both in this process of grieving.
And I did that too.
Um,
Like fell in love in a hopeless place, kind of. And we were both grieving too. I lost my grandmother. He lost his brother, and it was like at the same time. And we met during that time, and the relationship was built off of that.
yeah, and it's not sustainable, to be honest. I mean, today that would never happen again to me, right? Like I've learned my lesson from it, but the lasting effects of that have been like, whenever I'm grieving, I shelter. I go hiding. I'm not one to publicly announce things. I'm not one to put it on the forefront for other people because I don't want to put myself in another position where I'm building another friendship or another relationship off of what I'm dealing with on the inside with my own personal feelings and emotions. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a lot like too. Sometimes you see people say like, oh, if you're coming out of a program, right? Like you need to focus on yourself, not a relationship. And I think a lot of times when we're hurt, another person can fill that space with like a lot of excitement or joy or good feelings that we really latch onto because we're going through a bad time. And I think even though it is harder to just let me focus on myself and kind of heal what's going on, that's usually the better choice because like you said, sometimes that relationship, if it goes south, just kind of builds on top of the problem, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It did. So, and then now that they're in court, charges, people have been arrested, charges are filed, and it's like, oh, she's playing herself as the victim, but she's had this man arrested. Like, I don't think she's playing herself as the victim, and I don't think that she had him arrested. He had himself arrested if he shot her in the foot.
Facts.
Thing. So I think you know, it's not in my interest to be to decide public opinion, but at the same sense, I felt sorry for her watching that interview. I saw a hurt woman.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a very emotional and hurt woman on national TV saying, I was trying to save everybody. And, I don't know what I did wrong, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
my heart went out to her yesterday and today when I watched it again.
Well, we hope the best for both parties in this situation, that both get the additional help that they need to process and continue to move forward on life, and become just a better person individually. Because I really feel like there's a lot of hurt in that situation in itself. Not just the fact that you got to go to court, the fact that you got shot, the fact that your friend, the person you thought was your friend, there's a lot there to unpack. And I think that's where the trauma comes in for her, and where she's standing in this moment, trying to really express herself. Because Tori's been out here, he ain't been shy of the conversation. He's been out here for a while. We've heard his side for 2 years, and now we're finally hearing hers. So I'm glad that she is speaking out, and that we hope that everything works out for them either way. But let's talk about something else, right? So I got a little debate question that I want to bring up real quick. All right. So this is a thing that I found on the Shade Room from the Great Debates. So y'all bear with me. I'm gonna read through this scenario and y'all tell me what y'all feel, right? So from one of their subscribers, it says, I asked this woman I've been talking to for a minute for $100. I get a what do you need it for? When do I get it back?
Hello.
A whole bunch of questions, LOL. I planned a trip for us in the mountains in Colorado for 4 days. I paid the hotel $200, the whitewater rafting $150 per person, zip lining $125 per person, hot air balloon $250 per person, SUV rental $80 a day, and not to mention food cost. I had all this covered, just canceled everything, and got all my money back. Oh, okay. And I didn't need the $100. I just wanted to see what type of response I will get, and if I asked for it, would I get it? I didn't get what I wanted, and I didn't get the money back. And when I do get the money back, that I was planning for the vacation, I was just going to handle business. So
why did you cancel it?
What you mean? Why he canceled it?
If he didn't need the money, he was just looking for a response. Why did he cancel it?
It was a test.
A test of...
She failed the test, obviously.
Honestly, test or no test, I don't need you asking me for money. Because
hold on, friend.
That does not refute the awesome Black woman that I am. But I don't need you asking me for money.
Friend, we're not gonna do this today.
I graduated from school 10 years ago. There are no tests. If you wanted to plan this trip, say, let's plan a trip. I'm going to be responsible for these things, and you're going to be responsible for those things. But you asked me for some money.
And that was a problem? Y'all been talking, dating, whatever.
So his explanation, we can only go off his explanation, right? I think the thing here is there's no communication. Like, first off, I do also agree that testing people is the fastest way to get your feelings hurt, because you're setting a stage for expectation. I don't even mean this question, just test in general, to say like, I'm going to do this to see what they do, is like a very ineffective and underdeveloped way of getting information out of people. My thought is, if you wanted to know, would this person go half with me, give me money? Like, to me, that's just a conversation about, what do you think about money, finances? Are we going half on this trip? Can I have $100 for the trip? He just was like, hey, can I have $100? I would be hard pressed not to be like, why? Regardless of my ideas about money, I don't see most people being like, not at least asking why. And most people, maybe some people wouldn't, and that's their choice. But I think to say, I'm about to see if this girl's the one for me by spending all this money on a trip, and then I'm gonna secretly ask her for $100. And if she says anything I don't like, I haven't told her my expectation, but if she says something I don't like, I'm canceling the trip. Oh, okay.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Like
Not
there's
wrong.
a better way to him. That's to me, that's like a game, and we're too old for that.
You don't play games?
I don't
You
play
don't
games.
do tests?
I don't play. The only thing I play is the radio. So hey,
I'm gonna
straight
plead the
up
fifth on that one for you.
about some things because that was the wrong way to do that. And I think, if someone said, "Hey, let's plan a trip. I am going to take care of X, Y, and Z. I need you to pay the deposit. I need you to pay the reservation fee. It's $100, but I took care of the flight and I took care of the accommodations and I bought the tickets. Oh, say less, swipe. It's done. But Raven, let me get $100.
I think the thing is, though, it's like he's testing her loyalty. Like, it's not even about the money. He chose money,
Yeah.
which, that has a value to him, right? So he wanted to learn something there. But like the test, it doesn't even go together. Like, it's just odd. He was better off coming up with another way of figuring out, like, hey, how close are we? How cool are we? Like, what are we doing here? Versus being like, I'm about to test you.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah, can you help me out, please? Help me understand where we at with this, man.
I don't got anything. I think she just gave him the money and kept it tracking.
She could have.
I feel like that's I don't know, assuming.
We don't know enough, right? We don't know enough.
Yeah, assuming they have a relationship and they have a connection like that. You ask for money, you're in a relationship, you give the money over, you keep it tracking. If that's the relationship and the bond that you have, that was just my automatic thought. Now, if he was being spiteful and he was trying to set her up and you kind of got what you got, man.
But when is it okay? So, like, if a man asks me for money, then I question his sustainability. And if I ask a man for money, I'm in the relationship for the wrong reasons. So, like,
I'm sorry. So when we're in a relationship, we can't ask each other for money?
Right. I'm trying to figure out.
So I think what's happening with this question, like the reason why this question is an argue question is because it pulls your personal values in, right? Like everybody feels differently about money. That's why where the debate comes from. So like some people are like, men shouldn't be giving women money, so they're gonna argue. I think what is like weird to me is that he doesn't trust her and he just used like an arbitrary test. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, to me, I heard, you know what? I need to find out if I trust this girl. And I don't know if that would, to him, no.
Because clearly.
That part.
Listen, and let's talk about it though. Like, he listed out all these things that he did.
It was petty.
But did he really do those things?
It was I feel like that was petty.
It was.
It sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, sir, we get it. You're not broke. Like your point has been made. But did she know he wasn't broke? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give it up. Listen, I totally agree though. It's a horrible test to play with someone completely. You're gonna get your feelings hurt every time when you play these games.
That part.
So little word of advice for everybody out there. Don't play games with people, okay? Don't play these little tests. Have adult conversations.
Communication key.
It is very much the key.
Essential. Especially when you start talking about coins.
That part.
And that's all right, man. Because we're assuming if they go on the trip, they talked about money, but maybe they never have. And maybe this is his slide in to be like, we should talk about money. Can I have some? And then she was like, nope.
If that's it, no. We definitely know. If I can get $100 from you, come on, man.
All right.
It's $100.
Jamal said, "Don't play games. Communicate.
Right.
Communicate." And all
I agree.
Okay,
that
we
is.
agree.
All
We
right.
agree.
into
No
Florida.
playing no games.
Let's move on into the Sunshine State. They have been flooding the news.
Florida boy.
Okay, FLA check in.
Duval.
Oh,
I'm not happy about this though. Look, just by
Okay.
all means,
I
make
was
sure we
gonna
know
say.
this. No.
Florida. This is interesting. And they passed a bill. And it's called the Don't Say Gay bill.
Well, the technical name is the Parental Rights and Education Bill.
But it's the Don't Say Gay bill. Okay. And this bill is basically prohibiting instruction in grades K through 3 that mentions gay, LBGTQ, or any of that type of language. All right.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to allow parents to have a bigger interest in their child's education. So, how do we feel about that? This Don't Say Gay bill. You know, me, I can only speak for myself and I can't speak for any other parents. But I have a 7-year-old daughter. And I don't want the teacher to talk about sexuality to my 7-year-old. I would like a letter if they're gonna read the novel about Kevin and Keith. You know, in first grade, I would love to get a letter saying, "Do you want your child to be a part of this reading, or would you like an alternative assignment?" Or just talk to your daughter about this because we'll be discussing it tomorrow in class. Like, give me a heads up for what I'm about to witness at home after you read this book, kind of thing. So I kind of see, I'm torn because I agree with the bill as a parent and as an educator.
I feel like the curriculum has had to change. Like, I don't remember learning anything like this when I was in grade school in that level. So for us to be having this conversation today, it's kind of like, has the curriculum evolved this much to where these are actually topics that we're talking about with our kids from K to 3? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. So if this is a part of the curriculum that started to happen, then I agree. Have the conversation with your children on your own time at home. You be the person who brings this stuff up. But if not, I feel like this is a loss. It's a bill just to say something that you did something at the end of the day. The problem I have with it overall is it is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate. Who is the dictator of what is age and or developmentally appropriate at what phase of their life? It states K through 3, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it stops at the 3rd grade. Like, I feel like there's an opening for this conversation to say, well, this person is 7th grade. We can't have that conversation either because they're not developmentally ready for that conversation and that dialogue. Who are we basing this off of? What merit or what standings, research? Give me something that helps me understand that this is where we are in the conversation.
And I think too, what we have to take into play is the teacher doesn't have to say it. A child can mention it to a child. So there are so many factors that govern what your child is exposed to. They are on TikTok. They are on YouTube. When you send them away with that iPad and when you send them away with that cell phone, if you're not standing over their shoulders, there are so many things that can influence what your child is exposed to.
Right.
But I feel like as an educator, when it comes to stuff like that, I steer away from it. But if a child mentions it in my classroom, they can have that discussion, but I'm not having it. Now, I don't teach K through 3, but I work in secondary education. And I had a student come to me, hey, they are calling me gay. I said, well, are you gay? And it was rhetorical. He didn't have to answer it. But I said, as long as you know who you are and whose you are, the rest is nobody's business. But you see children on a daily basis. And I think they said Florida reports that 52% of their kids at this grade level are being bullied. And 42% of their kids at this K through 3 grade level are threatening to commit suicide because they can't be themselves, but they've passed a bill saying you can't say gay. Clearly, they have an issue. Aretha said, in a sense, it's like we have to draw the line with what the public school curriculum expects us to teach and what parents are expected to teach.
Agree. Dr. Alicia?
Yeah, I was going to say, so I don't know all the details of the bill because I also have seen responses from teachers sort of saying like, well, if your intention is not for us to mention gender, any type of sexuality or relationships, then I'm also not going to talk about mom and dad books because that is inherently inferring sexuality by talking about those things. So my youngest is not school age, so I don't have a stronger opinion about like what she's exposed to and learning. But so Delton sort of said the same thing, that we won't talk about sexuality at all, like not talking about marriage in general. And so the idea is if Don't Say Gay was meant to be, is it meant to be neutral or is it meant to be exclusive? And I think that's what is not right, to sort of say like, we can't talk about this one group at all, but we're going to talk about everybody else the way we've always been talking about them. And so I think the idea is like, if you are going to promote this type of rule, you can't be mad. I think the teachers were kind of savvy to say like, okay, well, that's fine. We won't talk about anybody at all. Like my name will be Mr. X or my name is Teacher X. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I think in terms of our politics, we all have our own opinion. So I have ideas about the politics of it.
Yes.
But also like what you guys mentioned, the whole point of like some of these restrictions and rules and people kind of promoting their own beliefs and ideas is that it does leave less room for the kids, right? So kids who are traumatized or upset or like having certain issues, it kind of says formally, there's no room for you, there's no space for you. We don't talk about that.
Yep.
That's conflicting, you know? You can't sort of say, you can't cite these numbers in one direction to say the kids are struggling, we got to protect them. And then sort of turn around and be like, well, we don't really care what you're struggling about. Just like, you'll be all right. We're just not going to talk about this stuff, which is the way of old, which doesn't really work that well.
True. And I think that's where a little bit of my own personal opinion for it, my personal bias to the whole thing is like, you're suppressing these kids from being able to really, truly be who they are and be able to express who they are. And no one is doing that to anyone else but the kids who are LGBTQ. And because of that, we're putting them back in this space where a lot of us adults have been all of our lives, where we had to be closeted or suppress who we were to fit into society's standard of what we should be. And we're causing another generation trauma and hurt and anxiety, depression, all the things that we're going to be talking about today. Mm-hmm. We're putting this on this generation who still has a lot of life to live. It is like there's this gap where our generation is like trying our best to become our best selves. And then the Gen Zers and the Gen Xers are like, oh, we here, loud, proud. We want to be who we are. Take us as we are. And now we got the babies coming up and you're like, nah, cut it back out. Shut it all down. We're not doing this again. No, like this is not happening.
You shut it down, they still see it.
Yeah.
So keep that in your mind. Although you shut it down, it is still available to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they are partaking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like when we grew up, like I don't recall, I didn't see a gay person until I got to college. And I'm from a small town. So I didn't see a gay person until I got to college. So I didn't know what it was. I remember calling my dad and telling him what I saw. And Norbert, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, but now I see kids saying I'm gay, I'm bi, I'm in a poly relationship. And these are 12, 13, 14, maybe 15 years old. So, as a parent, we have to have a conversation, because if you don't have it with your kids, somebody else is going to have it with them first. And another
Yeah.
thing I see with these children is there's no filter. They don't care.
At all.
They don't care what it is.
Mm-hmm.
She said, like, what's that?
So parents need to
Yeah.
wake up and smell the coffee, because you can dance around it all day, but you want to get to your child before somebody else gets to your child, and explain to them what it is, kind of thing. Because they are dealing with some things.
I will say I agree with that too. I think a lot of, and I understand as a parent, right? There's discomfort. That's why we sometimes ignore or dodge conversations. But the reality of it is the only thing you're teaching there is that you're not the person to talk to it about. Like, you're not so it's not that the conversation is not going to be had. It's not that they're all of a sudden forget their question. Like, oh, my mother ignored me, I'm never going to ask that again. It's like, oh, I'm just not going to ask her no more. Got it.
And I'm going to ask somebody else. I'm going to search it
And
on my own.
There are certain sources you don't want your child learning from.
All facts. All facts. Well, listen, we appreciate that dialogue on these hot topics, man. But we really want to get into the issue or the cause of why we're here today. We're talking about mental health in the 80s babies and everyone that's a millennial. We want to talk about how it's affecting us as a people, and how we can find ways to cope. What are some triggers, warning signs for our family and friends, and how can we can seek help, right?
And
my own self. Go ahead.
I was reading a Harvard Business Review, and they did a survey, and it showed that Gen Zs and millennials have ranked mental health as their first or second priority. So this means that people in our age bracket and a little younger are starting to say, I have a problem. Do we think that mental health, are we the ones bringing it to light?
No, personally, I think it's the generation of Gen Zs who are bringing it to light, because they're more focused on it. As for us, we suppressed it all these years. There hasn't been a conversation that we wanted to talk about. It's been something that we kept in the closet somewhere. And personally, dealing with certain things in my own life, I wasn't going to talk to nobody about my problems. That wasn't my place. For me, it was pray about it and let it go. And that's it. But these Gen Zs are like, no, I have an issue. I need you to hear me, listen to me, like understand where I'm coming from. And they are helping to release the stigma around it. For me, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that, like, we have the values of our parents before us, and that's kind of how things go generationally. So like these younger kids, they had their needs met. A lot of these, and I don't want to say struggling because everyone has a different definition of struggle, but like these kids had certain needs met. They are not the generation of like, I gotta keep it moving, I gotta just put my head down, no talking. Like their parents were like, look, I want to give you a little bit more of a life, maybe, right, than I had. And so what comes along with that is a voice. And I think they are seeing the effects of maybe what their parents or family members went through, as in terms of not talking about mental health or ignoring their struggles. They saw the way it played out. So I think, to include myself, like, and my generation. So I think it's like a thing where you learned your lesson through what you saw, and you're like, oh, I also feel empowered to have a voice. My mental health is my priority. Like, I'm not going to put work before that. I'm not going to put other needs and things before that. Like, and there wasn't, this person Jay is saying, like, we weren't allowed. So they have permission. We
Yeah.
have more permission. The generation below us has more permission to be able to say, like, this is not working for me.
Facts. And that's the key to it all. Like finally getting a chance to speak up about it, um, and expressing how you truly feel. And I think, like I said, as our generation is getting older, we're realizing that the trauma that our parents had, it has been passed on to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying our best not to pass that same trauma back on to our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why Gen Zers are so much more open and candid about their feelings, because we're starting to develop the mindset of, tell me how you feel. Let's talk about this. Whereas when we grew up, it was what happens in this house stays in this house mentality, right? A lot of things that happened, it was about you pray, let God handle it, and let it go. But that doesn't help. I did that part, but it didn't help. I'm still here. I'm still battling these issues on the inside. I'm still battling these demons and mindsets and thought processes that I got going on. I'm still being bullied at school. That hasn't changed anything. And we wonder why sometimes a lot of kids are like, why do I need to serve God? Because I've had all these prayers that you told me to pray. He ain't answered none of them. This prayer for me to be like, hey, I need help, ain't been answered yet. I'm still in my trauma. I'm still dealing with these issues. But we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
that leads, like, it is that little, I feel like in my family, I know for a fact it's that little thing that nobody wants to talk about. So, and that leads me into the next thing I want to say. Like, do we feel like Black people as a whole have a stigma about mental health? Like, are we too concerned about people labeling us as crazy for me to say I want to go to a therapist, or I want to go to counseling? Like, but if I tell my friends I'm going to counseling, if I tell my friends I made an appointment with a therapist, they're gonna think that I'm crazy. Like, what is it? Why won't we go seek help? Because when I look at
that's a fact. Stigma is a fact. Black people are less likely to seek treatment for those reasons. And like, I think part of it comes from, like you said, having to, right? I think every time people kind of bring things back to slavery, everyone's like, oh, why we gotta go back to slavery? Because we have to.
Talk about it.
It sets the tone. And so I think, right, like then it became like, we got to have a close, tight knit unit of togetherness. We can't have any flaws. We can't have any faults. We got to keep our business to ourselves. We were then mistreated by white psychologists and therapists who over pathologized us and misread the things that we said. So then it was like, well, going to the therapy is not going to help. Keeping it inside is not doing great, but at least I'm not mistreated, right? So fast forward up to today, which is not that far. I think there has been a lot the Black community has gone through collectively. And so people are recognizing it's more normalized and okay to speak up, but there's still, stigma. That's the first thing people say, like, oh, you're crazy. You need a therapist is just you paying for a friend. Absolutely not. I'm not my client's friends. I read a lot of books. I went to a lot of school. I'm not just talking.
Right.
And so I think it's this understanding of being able to trust the system a little bit, trust that the person that you're talking to. And then to be honest, right, that's why I'm a therapist. Like, I'm a Black person. 99% of my clients are Black.
Salute.
That reason, because there's a level of trust and understanding in the room from the beginning.
Yeah, agreed. I can talk to it myself, my own personal journey with therapy, which started 2 years ago. I didn't realize what I was dealing with at the moment, but there was a level of me just feeling really anxious starting at work. I didn't want to be there. I would get in these positions where I felt moments of like discomfort and abandonment because I work from home. And so like now in this situation where I could usually walk to my supervisor, I'm having to try to message them and figure out some ways. So didn't know all of those stem from other issues as a child. And now in this workplace environment that I'm at home now, I'm having to deal with this on a level of like I can't get to you as fast as I need to.
Mhm.
When I need something, right? And so I opened myself up to going to talk to someone about things. And the first person I went to, and this is not every person of this diaspora, but I went to a white person first, a white male. And I told him what I was going through. He asked me about my religion and
Mm.
about my relationship with God. And he told me, lean in on that
Oh,
and you got this. And I was like, bruh, I
I
grew
don't
up
have
in the church.
yeah.
I'm practically a PK. I don't have it.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
That's not why I'm here.
That's not it. I
Yeah.
didn't ask you about that. And
Right.
I later went to a new psychiatrist because it elevated
Mhm.
to that level. Again, another Caucasian person. And he says, you are a strong black man.
Mm.
Lean in on your faith. And I'm like, bruh, I'm now crying in front of this man. Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be here if I was so strong, bro.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like, help me understand. Like, if I'm supposed to lean solely on my faith and be the strong black man, all of us are not strong. It's hard being a strong black man out here in these streets.
In these streets.
It's strong being a black person in these streets, but I'm here and I'm seeking help. And
But
you
that would
telling me
imply
to
that this was the opposite of strength, and I also don't like that.
Yes. And I think that's another stigma. If I say
Yeah.
I need help, then I'm weak.
Yeah.
Kind
Yeah.
of thing. Or I am
That was a very it was not the best answer. I feel like that was out of a book, like one of those things that you read that are like Black people have strong faith in God. Make sure you remind them of it. Like that, the
yeah,
response was very textbook.
it was very cringe.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
very cringe. And I was in that mood. And in that moment, I was like, I don't want to see you no more. Don't keep me on your books. I don't want to go back to you. None of that. And I'm just like, who can I go to? Like, and in that season, I found an African American woman who lives here in my city. Shout out to Dr. Henderson. Doc, I love you because you are the best. She has helped me so much in my growth, in my processing of life. Like I tell all my friends, I'll be like, look, I got therapy appointment. I don't know what y'all got going on today, but I gotta go see my therapist because we got some things to talk about. And it's a weekly process. And for me, it's not a just once a month. Like stuff happens every day, and you need somebody to vent to and help you see what it is, why you react to it the way that it is. And so it's just one of those things like I can't get past it. I can't not be in this position anymore. Like I'm never gonna leave therapy.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's one of those things that you can within our community with so much to unpack.
Yeah. Yeah.
who are we seeing in our age bracket in that 80s babies group? Are we seeing more Black women? Or are we seeing more Black men seeking services from a therapist for their mental health?
I'm gonna go with Black women. Obviously, my personal experience right now is not the only experience, but I mainly serve Black women. But women in general are the people that traditionally present to therapy, anyways. So I wouldn't.
Mhm.
It's not odd that it's more Black women than men. But I do see more Black men being open and at least interested in therapy, like maybe at least calling me for a consultation. Or me giving referrals to other male therapists that they might connect with better than a woman. It's really a preference thing. Um, I would say more Black women, but I mean, the fact that my practice is 99% Black, I mean, that's all the people that I see. So they're definitely open to it, looking for it. You know, a lot of my colleagues who are Black women are full. So, yeah.
And then, so here's my thing: like, you specialize with anxiety, Dr. Alicia,
Mhm.
and I know that is something that I've dealt with in these past 8 months. Due to
Mhm.
a loss, I lost my father,
I'm sorry to hear
and
that.
you know what happened in my house, but he was my bestie. That was my ace boon. So it caused some things. And I went to the cardiac specialist. I went to the emergency room, and I ended up getting the doctor that pronounced my dad dead. And his name is Dr. Kumar. And he was like, "Hey, I remember you." And he was like, "I pronounced your father dead." He was like, "You're not having a heart attack. You're grieving." But then after I ended up going back to my doctor because I'm like, I'm grieving, but this feels like anxiety. So then it made me think about when I'm riding in the car with my mom and she's like, "Oh, don't get close to that car. Get on your brakes." And she's having a fit. And I'm like, that's anxiety too. So my thing would be, what does anxiety look like? Like, how do I know if maybe I should reach out to someone?
Right. That's a good question. So here's the thing, like anxiety, it exists on a continuum, meaning like a scale, right? So every humans experience anxiety before. Like if you're ever in class and the teacher's like, "All right, time to turn in your homework," and you didn't do it and your heart beats fast, like that's anxiety. So, it's meant to get your attention, to get you going, to protect you if like something's coming towards you, you need to run. So we all need to be capable of having anxiety, and it happens to all of us, but it's the threshold of like when it starts to impact your daily life, either too much, if it's like getting in the way of work, home life, school, you can't concentrate, like maybe you're having panic attacks. I mean, I think your doctor was very spot on in saying like this is a manifestation of like grief. And so I tell people that to me, the threshold of when you might want to consider talking to somebody is when you're really noticing like, I'm not feeling like myself. Like, because most people come, I don't want to say too late because too late implies that you can't be helped. But I think most people prolong until they're suffering. And then they're like, okay, now this checks the box. I can go. And it's like, you could go before you start suffering. Because if anything, the therapist might be like, ask you a couple questions and be like, okay, actually here's a few tips, but you're good. Why wait until you're suffering and it got way worse?
Yeah.
To then have them, I think we wait too long before we feel validated. So I would say if something is happening, more days than not for a while, and you're like, I'm really not feeling like myself, why not? See what's going on. Same way if your arm is hurting and you're going, your arm hurts for a couple of days, you might be like, I should go to the doctor. Don't wait till it fall off.
These are facts. Yeah. Hey, Isaiah, I want to bring you back into the conversation with a quick question. Like, what are some early signs that our family and friends can detect when we are in these phases of anxiety and depression, and how can they help us?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like because it's going to be like depending on if you know the person or not. And I think especially with the family members, it's really going to tell about how much you do know about them. Behavior changes. We're going to definitely pay attention to that. We're going to tell if you seem more isolated as far as depression goes, and even anxiety. If you seem more withdrawn from people, if you're not as engaged as you were before. Also, something that people might recognize is that you seem to be a lot more sluggish, or you might always be in this fog where it's like, how are you feeling today, Isaiah? I just feel like, man, or, might not feel really, really here or really there. Kind of going with the flow, not really having, I almost say almost numb, not really having a lot of feelings, or just kind of feel blah. And those feelings, like I heard Dr. Alicia mention earlier, they kind of linger. And it kind of goes from day to day, and you kind of recognize that social functioning, which she was talking about, those things start to add up. Maybe you're starting to be late for work more often. Maybe, you're calling your friend and you recognize that, hey, normally Isaiah's here at our brother's lunch every Friday, and I recognize that he's not here. And then, a couple of weeks go by, he hasn't been here, a couple of months go by, and you recognize those changes in his behaviors. Also, I think that something else with anxiety is for us to be able to kind of recognize that anxiety can be expressed in so many different ways, especially when it comes down to across the board as far as somatic. Anxiety is not only just how we feel up here, but also our bodies. I heard Dr. Alicia mention it earlier. I want to say sometimes it can be our stomach hurting, our head hurting. Depression can also be exemplified different ways. So always looking at somatic signs as well. So looking at all those different factors, but also know your people and know kind of the behaviors. And if the behavior changes, not being afraid to kind of inquire and say kind of, hey, what's going on or what's up, or, anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like you're saying basically be that safe space for your friends. I'm thankful to have, free people in my life where I could go and say, listen, I'm not well. Today is not a good day. And that's what we need to be for each other through everything that we're dealing with in life. Each person is separate from their own issues, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we all need help, no matter how strong you are. We need that community. We need that feeling that, we got some support behind us.
Yeah.
So my next question would be this. So once I realize I have a problem, or if I'm feeling a certain type of way, that's that religious thing. Many see it as a sign of weakness or a demonic and bizarre behavior. Like,
it's not demonic, it's trauma.
And church was like, it's a generational curse. Oh, that's that generational curse. It was just like that.
It's only a generational curse because you didn't help in the situation. We didn't talk about what happened when we were little.
Curses are meant to be broken.
Yes. Yes.
So what are some things we can do to put our mental health first, or to make our mental health a priority? Like, what are some things, a person can do, whether they're ready to go to the therapist or if they're not, but how can some things that we could just do in our daily, weekly routine to put our mental health first?
So I think I can think of like there's some prescriptive things that are simple, meaning like I believe in mind-body connection. So literally you can improve your mental health by getting sleep, like enough hours of sleep a night, and eating regularly. Like sleep for real. Like when people kind of say like, my life's out of control, I don't know what I can control, your sleep. And I'm someone who's a night owl, and I push the limits, but I know for a fact that sleep will improve your mental health because sleep exacerbates mental health problems. So the opposite then would be getting rest. The other thing that I could think of is just like movement. So I don't say exercise because I feel like it's a very cultural term, like, hardcore exercise, dieting. I'm not saying that. I mean just like movement, because when you're stressed and anxious, you build up stress hormones, and the only way for them to reduce is to get your blood circulating, and the only way you kind of can do that is movement. So I tell people when they're feeling like upset or overwhelmed, just do like 5 jumping jacks and see if you could get your blood moving. And then a bigger thing, which is not like just a checkbox, is I would say if you're not ready to have therapy, or even if you are, just have better boundaries. Like ask yourself, be honest with yourself about what things work for you and what don't, and really try to start to make some changes in your life. That is hard work. You probably might as well use your therapist for that. But even without a therapist, you can Google and find tips on how to have better boundaries.
Facts. Woo. Boom. And the only thing that I would add to that, she spoke straight facts. The only thing I would add to that is disconnect.
Yes.
Disconnect from this. Like social media and news. Like, I'm all about being current and knowing what's going on, but sometimes with social media and your phone, if you can disconnect from this sometimes, just put it to the side and just kind of do something once again, kind of for yourself, something that you love doing, and something that's natural or wholesome, even if it's like cooking, or if it's something like a walk in the park, something that's not technology driven.
Yeah.
I think that's super healthy for our mental, because it's super healthy for our mentality, by all means.
Yeah, we consume so much when it comes down to social media and the news. And I stopped watching local news for a long time because it was like, it's too depressing. Like it's so much happening. It's like, I don't want to hear about nobody else getting shot. I don't hear about another robbery. I don't want to hear about all that stuff. Like, but I want to be informed. And now I sit here and watch The View every day. I watch a couple of episodes of the news broadcast every day, and knowing that is gonna open up a level of like, really, we doing this again? But I don't know. I'm as a communications major, I can't get away from it. But I want to talk about something we talked about just now: boundaries. Mm.
Yeah.
Can we just a tad bit, like, it's tough, right? Like, to really set boundaries, because now it's like, oh, why you acting funny? Who do you think you are? You better than me now all of a sudden? Like, you don't want to be around me? You don't like me no more? Is there a problem? Like, we got beef or something? No, it's just I need me time.
Yeah.
I need to focus on me. Why do we have such a problem with setting boundaries?
I think some of it is, well, there's a lot of reasons. Everyone has their own personal reasons for why they're having a hard time. But like, I could say one thing is what you were taught. So if you were taught through what you observed through your parents or caregivers, the way that their boundaries were, they may not have had great boundaries, or you were not allowed to have boundaries as a kid. You don't get a lot of practice and experience maybe saying no, or like, this is how I want to do things. You don't have a voice. And then the second reason is usually just like the fear of the outcome. So a lot of people are fearing, if I set this boundary, I'll lose this relationship, which there may be some hard truths to that. Like, that actually may be true, which is why people are bending. But then you have to question, is this a relationship I need to have? I cannot be respected. And I mean basic respects. Of course, we're going to have disagreements and not always want the same things, but it's kind of like a relationship is about exchange of respect. So if I tell you even something simple, like I go to bed at 10 o'clock, don't call me after that, and you keep calling me, like, what are we doing here? Like, just because you think it's not important, if I'm important to you,
you'll respect that.
don't call me.
Yes. And I agree. It comes back to that, to what you just now mentioned, D, is that respect piece. It really does. If people are meant to be in your life and you set that boundary with them and you have that discussion, because I feel like it's healthy to have a healthy communication about what you're doing. And to have that discussion and talk about that. Now that you got to give them all your business, you got to tell them why you're doing it, but this is what I'm doing for me. And you can have that conversation, and you can set that understanding there. Because I necessarily believe in, like, I think that people can pull themselves away, and that's what they can do for what they need, that in the moment they can come back and they can clean it up. But I also think it's important that if you have people that are close to you, and it's important that they know you're okay, it's okay to let them know what you're doing too. It's okay to have that conversation. And I'm also okay with you doing what you need to do for you, and they'll be okay.
I also want to bring up a point too, is that like the outcome doesn't qualify whether your boundary is good or bad, right? That's a judgment thing. Like you mentioned earlier, if I used to give somebody $1 every day, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm trying to save up for a house, I can't give you the $1 anymore. Just because they say, oh, you switching up, that doesn't mean my boundary is bad. They have nothing to lose. Of course, they're going to ask you for the $1 again.
Right.
Of course, they're going to maybe resort to being like, I thought you were my friend, because they were gaining in that situation. And so the idea is that their reaction doesn't determine, was my boundary good or not. It's my follow through. That I have to say, like, I'm very sorry you're upset. You don't even have to say that, but you know what I mean? Like, if they're close, I'm sorry you're upset, but I'm saving for a house now. Either you will or you don't understand that. And you have to sit with that. You can't go back and be like, okay, I thought about it. I don't want you to be upset. Let me give you the $1. Because now what have you taught them? When I say stuff, I don't really mean it.
Yeah. Isn't that the thing where you teach people how to treat you?
Exactly.
That's it. This is that. And it's so true. Like, literally, like, you said it just so eloquently. Like, listen, it's okay to feel away, but don't go back on it. You set the boundary, stick to the boundary, and let the boundary be what it is. And I think it opens up doors for the conversation of different types of friendships and where you guys actually rely. Is this a uneven friendship? Is this person gaining more from being your friend than you are for having them in your life as well? And that's a hard truth.
But I definitely think that's the word for tonight, is boundaries. And for the rest of 2022, we need to set some. And
Most
stick
definitely.
to it. You know, that's for everybody. You know, set some and stick to it because you have to protect your peace. You have
Yes.
to protect you. And the only way you're going to do that is with boundaries. And if it's not good for your mental,
Right.
Most
that
definitely.
kid who's always telling you something, like, girl, did you see what she said about you? And girl, did you see this? Like, hold up, just don't tell me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mhm.
want to know about her. I don't want to know about them. Just don't tell me. Like, sometimes you need to do that. We don't do it, but sometimes we need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I'm good at that. Don't call me asking for my advice and then you go do something different. When that situation open back up again, I'm good, sis. I'm good over here.
mhm. Like,
Oh man, listen.
this
I
is
know we're
definitely
running a
like,
little bit. I know
go
we're
ahead.
running a little bit over our time, guys, and I really appreciate you guys for being here. I do have a couple of questions because I want to make sure our viewers have some insight of where they can find help, get help, and maybe dispel some myths about therapy. Like, help us understand, what does therapy look like in your profession?
Wanna go for a
Like
second?
this, a conversation.
Yeah.
A
I
conversation. The Dr. Alicia definitely gave you her experience, and I don't think it's gonna be too far from mine. But that's kind of what I think, especially as a man of color, and when I'm coming into someone that looks like me, I try to engage in a normal conversation because it's an equal relationship. And they're coming to me to be able to help um, help potentially get in a better space. And then my role, of course, is to be able to help them get to that better space. But it's to guide them. It's not to say that I'm the expert. You listen to everything that I'm saying. It's to help guide them and to provide some insight and to provide guidance. But it's a conversation. And there is some teaching that comes along with it in my experience. And when I'm in my office, there's teaching that comes along with it, but it's a conversation. And I think that everybody's experience is probably going to be different on the other side. By all means, it's going to be different. People I've only seen in my experience, I've only had two people that look like me in my agency that I've worked with. I don't see a lot of people that look like me.
Mm.
And that says volumes because I work specifically with individuals who are low income, and typically, you know, socioeconomic wise, that seems to be the population are minorities. But the behavioral health help is there, but there's not a lot of individuals in that group that take that up. So that's been my experience, though. But it's a conversation. It's an equal exchange. It's a rapport building. It's a relationship. Dr. Alicia?
Yeah, I would agree. The same principles. The way I do therapy is very interactive. I usually tell my clients I'm the expert of psychology, but they're the expert of themselves. So I of course, need to collaborate with them and I need their help. And like therapy looks like it's your space. I always encourage people to realize like your therapist is going to ask questions and give structure, but like it is up to you and on you to do that work. A lot of the change happens outside the therapy room. So, you're using the therapy space to talk through things and maybe plan and process, but a lot of what comes is you really implementing those things out in your everyday life and making those changes and really working hard. Therapy is hard work. It's not just coming and like talking and I think about it later when I see you again. It's hard work. And so I really, I like applaud everybody who's ever even tried or tried to get therapy because it's hard. It can be a process you got to go through, but it's hard work.
Yeah. Definitely unpacking so much and just opening up that conversation. And
Ray asked about how people can get therapy. So there's a lot of directories online. I think if you are a person of color, you can go to there's a therapy for Black girls.com, therapy for Black men. You could go through your insurance. You can look on your insurance and kind of see maybe what do I have offered to me EAP. I would be honest, I'm not a fan of those like texting tech apps. But I'd rather maybe you have something than nothing if you're gonna do that.
Yeah.
So there's a good amount of, I think, resource and accessibility. It's not easy, it's still work, but there's some stuff out there.
So if people wanted to reach you, how would they do that?
Mm-hmm. So I am on like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those things. My at name is actually Help Me Hodge, so HelpMeHodge, like my last name, and that's my. You just put my website, slayyouranxiety.com.
Slay your anxiety. Come on now.
T-shirt dropping this summer. So.
I'm gonna grab one. I'm copying one.
I am for it.
Love it. Love it.
And Josh, Isaiah, what about you?
So because I work for a private agency, you can definitely reach me on my LinkedIn. If you have any questions about how to get any direct mental health services, you can definitely go on my LinkedIn, which is Christopher Isaiah Foote. Look me up on LinkedIn. My cell number is in there. My mobile is in there. Also, my email is there as well. Definitely hit me up. If you're in the North Carolina, Charlotte, Mecklenburg area, Cabarrus County, send me a text, get some, let me know that you're interested in seeking mental health services. And there's lots of state funds out there for mental health. There's lots of your public health programs out there. They're providing free mental health service and some actual free services out there for Cabarrus Health Alliance. So there's lots out there, like Dr. Alicia was saying. So definitely look me up on LinkedIn, send me a text. It's open. It's my work cell. So like I said, it's there. And just shoot me a text, and I can definitely get you linked up. And if you're interested in working with me personally, I can talk to you about my agency and we provide.
Okay, and David has a question. Also, Isaiah Foote, you have to tell them how to spell that.
It's F as in Frank, O as in octopus, O as in octopus, T as in Tyler, and E as in Edward.
Okay,
it's not Fute.
For David's question, if you're searching on your insurance, it depends on your provider, but it probably says behavioral health or mental health.
Definitely good information. I know with my current provider, we use EAP through Live Health, so
nice.
Definitely a great resource to have. Yeah. So listen, guys, we're gonna wrap this up again. What about in Alabama?
So if you're looking on your insurance, it'll, you can filter in your area. If you're looking on a directory, it will allow you to filter by states.
Great information there.
Yeah, that's great information.
We appreciate you guys.
The bomb. This has been thebomb.com.
Yeah, this is a lot of engagement we've had today, a lot of interaction. I've gotten direct messages like, yo, this is good. And I'm so thankful that we had an opportunity to have this conversation. I know we did not get everything out today, right? Everything hasn't been laid on the table. There's not been a full blueprint of life and walking through these phases. But we hope that you gain some type of knowledge, some insight, and a level of comfortability to open yourself up to the idea of therapy and working on your mental health. Overall, like, we as a people have to get better, and the only way we get better is when we do our part to help ourselves. And so it's going to be hard work. Personally, it's been hard work. It's very few times I left my therapist not crying because it's a lot to unpack. But you got to do the work. You got to be open and honest with yourself and be willing to accept the help that is being given to you. And so thank you, Dr. Alicia. Thank you, Isaiah, for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. And, we might have to run this back again, and bring y'all back with some other conversation. Y'all have been fun. Like, y'all insight has been real dope. I'm cool with this. But definitely we'll drop some more information in our channel over on Facebook. So make sure that you check out our page. We'll make sure we have both Dr. Alicia and Isaiah's contact information where you can find them posted, as well as other helpful tips on how to get mental health access and support. So with that, Rachel, you got anything else for the people?
I am floored by the amount of good information that was received tonight. I think this definitely helped the people. If your people miss this, share it with your people. So
Yes.
you got on tonight. Go ahead and share this one because our friends, our family members, they need to see it, and they can contact Dr. Alicia, and they can contact Isaiah if they need to tap into some other resources. This was the bomb.
Most definitely. Again, thank y'all so very much for joining us today. We really appreciate you guys. Y'all have an amazing evening. We'll catch you back here again soon. Look out for our next broadcast updates. Thank you again. And this was the 80s Babies Conversation. Have a great one.
Bye.